多謝大家。咁我哋
Members, we formed a quorum and it's also the appointed time and call the meeting to order. Please note that we have 56 members here and we need 18 to form a quorum. So we formed a quorum now. The first item on the agenda is confirmation of minutes of our meeting held on the 18th of October 2016. The minutes have been circulated to members for comments, but we have not received any proposal for amendments. If there are no questions, then the minutes are confirmed. Okay. Item number 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. There are 7. For details, please refer to our revised agenda. All right. If there are no other questions, date of next meeting and items for discussion. On the 16th of October, rather on the 18th of October, members raised a number of questions raised a number of proposed items for discussion. And on the 30th of October and the 2nd of November, myself and the Deputy Chairman had a meeting with the SIT and also the Commerce and Economic Development Secretary. And please refer to the list of outstanding items. They have more or less reflected the wishes of members. The next meeting is scheduled for the 12th of December 2016 at 2:30 at room 3. The administration has proposed to discuss with us overview of the manpower situation of creative industry and update on information security. Any problem? If not, that will be the agenda for our next meeting. Item 4, Capital Works Reserve Fund Head 710 Computerization Subhead A007GX Block Allocation and New Administrative Computer Systems. Please invite the administration to join us now.
I
will invite the administration to brief us first before I give the floor to members for questions. Who from the administration will walk us through the paper, please? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to brief the panel on our funding submission to the FC4, the Capital Works Reserve Fund has 710 computerization block allocation. In 2017-18, we need cash to fund already approved works. We are seeking $990 million, the same amount sought last year, so that we can allow bureaus and departments to effectively use IT to enhance our public services and to bring better quality of life for members of the public. And there will be continuous system update to address the issue of outdated software and hardware. We'll also use big data and mobile applications, enhance service quality, and to enhance security in IT. Bureaus and departments will conduct regular risk assessment to implement various measures to ensure that there is no threat or attack to our IT system. We hope that the Council can support our application for block allocation so that we can achieve the objectives in IT. I welcome questions from members. Thank you. How many members are going to ask questions? Mr. Charles MOK and Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Any other? And Ms. Eunice Yong. Any others? Any other members? Got it. 5 members for the time being, so 5 minutes each for questions and answers. Mr. Charles Mok, thank you. So there are a number of items under Head 710. It is a recurrent application. We may not have enough time to go through all the projects one by one, but then I think, of course, the industry would rather you work even faster because there are so many projects, because many systems being used in government departments are rather outdated or not yet state-of-the-art. Would like you to expedite your pace. For sure, we don't want you to stall your progress. However, in your annex, you have highlighted the use of iClouding. I think this is very important because the government has got GovCloud. Perhaps the Undersecretary and the GCIO can tell us the level of application of GovCloud, because we've heard from the industry that the application is not very extensive and is also slower than anticipated. Is it the truth, and what remedy do you have for that? And we're told by the industry that you can resolve all problems by using GovCloud, which is a private cloud. And it was developed quite a while ago. And it is not as state-of-the-art as public clouds, so they may not, it may not enjoy any competitive edge in things such as information security. So instead of putting government applications to GovCloud, can you consider doing it the following way? And you should not use privacy as an excuse, because according to the industry, public clouds may even be more effective in dealing with such issues. So can you use a public cloud instead of GovCloud? All right, can you tell us whether GovCloud is very outdated? Thank you, Mr. Mok, for your questions. Our e-platform can be divided into 2 classes. First, a government cloud, which is a private one, and we've also encouraged government departments to use public cloud as their platform. There are about 160 government services put in public cloud. Our guidelines to departments are, if there is nothing sensitive in the content, we would encourage departments to use public cloud as a platform for serving the public.
If there is sensitive content that cannot be disclosed to the public, then we will use our internal private cloud as a platform. In the recent months, we announced new guidelines that when the government departments in using their own private server need to update the content, they must first choose to use the cloud service, and they need to come up with reasons for using their own server. There are a few major projects that have been launched in relation to the cloud development platform. We hope to gradually migrate more content to the cloud platform. Well, I don't think I have enough time. because I just have 15 seconds left. Thank you. All right. According to the ROP of 83A, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest with a discussion, please disclose it before you speak. Mr. Hu Ji Wei, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been a lot of requirements mentioned regarding the upgrading of systems in the paper. I remember the Secretary for Innovation and Technology told us before that he wanted to use big data to try to allow the public to use it strategically. But from this paper, I only see in paragraph 7b that there is such a thing. But then how are you going to divide it by category? And what is the strategy behind it? Because it would really help me understand whether to approve funding. Otherwise, my colleagues would just ask about it when you apply for funding. I think Secretary Yeung, in some of his previous responses, also said that they need to upgrade the systems. But if you need to upgrade the systems, the software, on a frequent basis, we're talking about a critical mass of about 10 odd billion, but I don't see any strategy here. What I see only here is that you're still using your traditional way of thinking that, because the computers are getting old, you will need to upgrade it. Can we try to use our resources to do something better? Let's say you want to work on e-government. If we're able to utilize our resources, our critical mass data, then we'll be able to improve our services. I don't see a blueprint here now. Well, I'm not disagreeing with what you are bringing up today, but I want to see whether you can give us a blueprint to let us know that we can actually upgrade what we are doing and not to just only act as an advisor. Instead, to really try to upgrade all our data. I remember when we raised this in last year, when you really try to implement the upgrading of systems, the systems might already become out of date. I remember last time, sometimes you request the computers to be backward compatible. But then by 2020, Windows 7 probably might be down. At that time, you might need to use Windows 10. Are we going to keep on purchasing backward technology? How are you going to ensure that we'll be keeping ourselves up to date so that when implementation comes through, you're still using the up-to-date technology? Thank you, Mr. Wu, for your question. Cloud, platform, and big data are going to be our main foundation in the future. We do have a paragraph in the paper in relation to block allocation of the cloud platform and big data. How can other departments use our cloud platform? We are coming up with an incentive to promote further usage. We're going to talk to other departments to see how we can better use it. As regards to purchasing software and hardware, perhaps Mr. Lam can help me respond to your question. Mr. Lam, please. Thank you. The OGCIO continuously provides courses and training to allow everyone to be updated on current systems. Of course, we know that technology is advancing by the day, and therefore there is a need to monitor and update our systems. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I want to ask what you can do to ensure that when I really receive the delivery, it's going to be the most up-to-date systems. Oh, Madam Chair, we do have central procurement strategies to help our departments use the latest up-to-date technology. The technology, both the software and hardware, will be developed on a continuous basis. Well, what Mr. Wu means that sometimes it's not only an issue of a software or hardware. Sometimes when you're purchasing the upgrade version, you might already be choosing a technology that's already old. So can you use a better or updated technology to be using the most updated technology or version when we purchase it? Ms. Yong Ho Yen. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, in recent years, there is a lot of cyber bullying. And we see in the paper that there's upgrade in cyber security, and I see from the details that even the housing authority also has ways to protect its own computer systems. I want to ask about cybersecurity in the government right now. Is it a consistent or a united system? Are you using cloud platform, or are you going to update all the information onto the government cloud so as to ensure that cybersecurity is intact? Secondly, in promoting services, we can look back to money spent on e-services. Have you consulted the public to try to understand how to use big data so as to better understand what kind of information is required by the public? Mr. Yang, please. We are using layers of security in the government, including firewall to protect ourselves, and we also have software to deal with viruses and spam mail. As we do have different layers of security, some of them are central security measures, and some are implemented by the individual departments to better their own systems. We request departments to review their security measures every 1 or 2 years to ensure that they are on par with the current risks. Ms. Rong Ho Yen, do you have any supplement question? Well, yes, you haven't told us how you're going to promote your services. Well, I heard you mentioned big data right now. Well, we attach huge importance to big data. We are going to work with other departments such as the food security and also with the transport department to ensure that we can better service the public. If I can refer you to paragraph 7 in the paper, under 7B1, we are also opening up a pilot cloud development platform for big data analytics model, and we hope that by using big data we'll be able to improve our services to the public. Ms. Young, we're going to talk about this in the next meeting. Perhaps we can go into detail about this cybersecurity next time. Well, my question was also in relation to cybersecurity. In August of this year, the immune system in the health department was hacked, and information was leaked out. I do not see from the upgrading of the system in the health department any measures in enhancing cybersecurity. What can the government do to ensure privacy and to make sure that hacking into systems will not happen again? Mr. Lam, we work closely with the health department to ensure that hackers would not get into our systems. The system is already very comprehensive, and they're using their own system to upgrade themselves. Some of the resources are invested in by the department itself. Although there is no emphasis on enhancing cybersecurity, we have reviewed the system to see whether we can enhance security in a centralized manner, and to see whether information saved in the service could also be put in our cloud so that it will not be leaked out to the public. Well, there has been a report made regarding Hong Kong server security, and there is a mention that many of the servers would be hacked per month. So what is the government doing in terms of enhancing cybersecurity and to ensure that information would not be leaked out? Or I'm more familiar with actually banking system security. So if you can you compare yourselves to the banking system security? Is it safer, or actually we are at a higher risk than banks? Oh, thank you for your question. We monitor our computer system every minute and to ensure that there will not be any hackers. Hong Kong, in terms of cybersecurity, we are at a higher risk. We can refer to two reports. One is Kapeski report and Semantic report, which were published in June. It said that Hong Kong is not at a very high risk in computer hacking. Well, although we are not at high risk, we request all our departments that if there is any sign of hacking or cyber threat or ransomware or cyber attack, then we will ensure that we will be able to lower our risk.
Any follow-up? I'd like to ask whether the risk can be quantified, like low, medium, high, or compared with the banking sector system. How do we compare? I think we're comparable. Okay, thank you. Dr. Kwokaki. Well, they're asking for $990 million. It is hard for us to object. I'd like to know whether they will create any, they do any value for money assessment on an annual basis, because we'll talk about close to $1 billion. So have you done any such audit? If yes, can you give us information? And I think we have done rather badly in the area of school children. Perhaps this has nothing to do with this Undersecretary, but international rating institution has criticized Hong Kong for not very IT advanced. So have you ever assessed whether our money has been well spent? And because we have not done very well in introducing our young people to this IT era. And for the Transport Department, item number 105, there's some for Lantau, $9 million for the road system, and the study now for opening up the Lantau South Road. We have never promised that the number of vehicles allowed to use Lantau be greatly increased. Currently, the daily quota is 25. Why are you seeking more than $10 million for this? Anyone? All right. For each project, we do require the department concerned to give us a report after the project is completed, and they will conduct an assessment according to that report. In the past 5 years, all projects are 100% accomplished. They've been able to complete these projects within budget. 96.6 to 99.2% fulfill the specifications, and then 96.6 to 97.7% able to do what was proposed. So we believe we're able to do as planned. Now, of course, money has already been spent, but I'm asking whether the money spent has been effective in enhancing our IT application and creativity in Hong Kong. Well, even if you give you $10 billion, you'll be able to use it all. So you must not talk about individual projects. You must have a policy. For each project that come for funding, there are bound to be objectives and specifications. And after a project is completed, we will assess the project according to the objectives and specifications. So automatically they will fulfill your requirements. Not automatically, but we will assess the outcome after a project is completed. The GCIO has got staff to assess the outcome of such projects. What about school children or young people? Deputy GCIO, Dr. Kwok mentioned how did we compare with other places. We have some data for digitalization or preparedness in this regard. Hong Kong is regarded as a mature, among the mature and well prepared places. For college in New Jersey, in 2013-14, there was a survey on digital governance. Hong Kong ranked number 3, and also administrative college in Europe. A similar survey was did, and Hong Kong ranked number 3 in Asia. And then cloud readiness survey by another institution. Hong Kong ranked number 1 in Asia. So Hong Kong is doing quite well compared with other places in terms of digital preparedness. Regarding the two project names, two projects from Transport Department 150 and 155, they are not yet approved. Then you have to explain more carefully. You know, we are very concerned about Lantau transport in Lantau. I think you have to wait until the second round because you don't have enough time for this round. Well, this is just a budget. So will these be submitted to the FC? If yes, please give us. Please be careful and give us the all the information we need. Well, to be careful, this is not very appropriate. Why is it inappropriate? Chairman, you have no right to criticize my diction. Otherwise, there is no point for us to go on. Because you sounded threatening, but it doesn't matter. Well, as the chairman, it's my judgment that what you said was a bit threatening. You don't have right to judge such things. Well, I'm the chairman, of course. I have the authority to do so. Mr. Raymond Chen. It's difficult for us to object the whole application since it is block allocation, although we're not happy with one or two individual projects. Anyway, we want the money approved to be well spent. Some members have queried some of the items, so I hope you can address these queries as far as possible. We will talk about projects that cost less than $10 million per project, and for those above this budget, they have to go to FC for approval. So I'd like to know for last year, how many projects above $10 million did we have? And have you got a budget this year already, or can they go and apply for funding anytime they like? And for some of these items, they were seeking more than $9 million, very close to the cap. Now, I have some problems about the updating of websites, the upgrading and enhancement of websites. How are they different? Are these projects proposed based on the needs of the department concerned, or have you done an assessment for them, thinking that it is necessary to upgrade their website? Take item 37, Customs and Excise, upgrading of department portal, $9.8 million. But for the election affairs department, just $1 million, and for CPU $9.5 million, Education Bureau $2.5 million for upgrade of the portal. So were these are these projects initiated by the departments themselves? Do you have any monitoring over what they propose? First, the portal. All right, I will address the first question. Whether we have got projects over $10 million. There were about 7 to 8 last year approved by FC. Every year is different. It depends on the annual budget. All departments are required to go through the resource allocation exercise to let us know what major projects there are. And during the annual budget exercise, they will have to tell us how many do they have. Last year there were 7 to 8. And for upgrade of portal or website, we have central guidelines for government gov.hk. The government's website is upgraded. There is a new design, an adaptive feature. For instance, users may access the same portal using their iPad or their phone and their desktop computer very easily. They don't have to scroll to look at the website at a glance. How come some projects are more costly than others? because for some departments, they need more than upgrading the software of the portal. They have to upgrade the servers, that is the hardware as well. Having said so, they have to get our approval whenever they apply for funding, and we vet each and every item very carefully to see whether it is genuinely needed, and we will only approve the funding if we are satisfied that it is needed. So there's no question of some department getting more from us and some getting less from us, because we have a mechanism to assess the amount needed. Do you have a cap for IT expenses for each department per year, or will you just approve any item or any project they submit to you, so long it is below $10 million? Theoretically speaking, there is no ceiling. They upgrade their system on a need basis, because each department may be different in terms of the lifespan of their software and hardware concerned. Dr. Fernando Cheung, we will support the upgrade of systems, surface data in particular, if they are available, can help social welfare, medical and health care services to be better delivered. Para 16C, to enhance internal government, enhancing internal operational efficiency. 6C, you talked about the central enhancement of central information system for central referral of rehabilitation services and disabled preschooler subsystem and children protection registry. Can you tell us more about the children protection registry? Because I'm quite concerned that many kids live in relatively higher risk environments. Now, we are aware of child abuse cases. There will be a case conference to tackle such a case, and there is also a registration system. But there are also other high-risk scenarios. For instance, last year, a 5-year-old child with Down syndrome died of intoxication poisoning by ice poisoning. He was with a single-parent family, and his single mother had a history of drug abuse. So do you have a system to identify children living in high-risk environment? How does this registry operate? For instance, would there be any record on child abuse, domestic violence, or carers with psychiatric illness, or carers who have lived in penal systems? Would there be cross-reference in the registry to indicate the needs? Ms. Chen, we have about 800 to 900 cases in the registry.
This item seeks funding to improve the registry. There is a certain format to the registry. These children may come from families with drug abuse, or maybe of high risk. And so this project is to do exactly what you so mentioned. Madam Chair, I'm not just asking about the records. I want to know whether the system can set a red flag warning for high risk indicators. Let's say in one family there is person with drug abuse, one disabled person and one child. Can we put a red flag to this family, or with families that have family abuse cases? Can we try to look at it from the public health perspective, to try to do prevention work and only to help after disaster has struck? Well, according to the information by the Social Welfare Department, once the system is completed, there would be more data to help us analyze the data and to identify the risk so as to reduce the time for follow-up work. This is one of our objectives as well, exactly as what Dr. Fernando Chung said. Yes. Well, you have to understand that OGCIO only works in the system area. If you talk about the specifics on putting red flag to the system, I think that you would have to conduct a detailed discussion with the Social Welfare Department. But as the officer said, they originally planned to put it in the paper. Your suggestion is very good. I'm sure that you can raise this in another panel or to follow up with the Social Welfare Department. Well, I just hope that they're able to do this technologically. Well, I'm sure that technologically speaking, it would be feasible, but it's not exactly, may not be up to your standards, so we'll have to talk to the SWT about it. Next, Mr. Chan Heng-ping. Thank you. Well, in 2015, statistics show that only 62.9% of the projects are able to be completed on time. So that means there are 30% upgrades that cannot be completed on time. We know that some departments would need to upgrade their computers, but then when they start to write up a proposal to upgrading the systems, by the time that they can finally upgrade the system, the technology would already have become backward. You know that technology advances very quickly. What can the government do to enhance efficiency in upgrading computer systems? Is there any measures you can implement? What does each department need to upgrade? Perhaps each department could set up a proposal to do it, but then the government can also ask or request the individual departments to propose upgrading when they need it and not just to wait till it's a block allocation. How can you ensure that a technology would not be outdated when it is finally implemented? There are many reasons for not completing the projects on time. Some of the requests may have changed in time. The contractors might be in discussion with the department to make changes to the upgrades. So this would delay some time. We do try our best to let the departments use QBS in their procurement. If we do this all together, then it would be faster, because if they do it individually by departments, it would take an even longer time. The departments do not necessarily have to wait to apply together. If there is an urgent need, as long as they comply with certain requirements, we would, and as long as we have reserves, we would allow them to make an urgent proposal within a year. Mr. Chen, is there any way to ensure that when the departments receive their computers, the systems would not be outdated? Some people told me that when they finally get the computers, the systems are already 2 years behind. Does this happen? Because is it because that the process have been delayed? Madam Chair, I don't think this happens on a frequent basis. Although I would not rule out the possibility, I'm sure that it doesn't happen frequently. So, is there actually a long time lag from proposal till implementation? Well, we do take note of the different versions, especially in software. Software upgrades, we're not only talking about software. Well, I'm not just talking about software. I just want to ask one question. Let's say it's a police department. They want to get a new computer. So from making a proposal till the computer gets delivered, how long does it take? Well, from the day he wants to change a computer till he gets a new one, it should be within 3 months. That's the usual case. Unless he needs a lot of new software or systems in his computer, because testing might take a very long time. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. I hear many complaints on ticket booking at the LCSD. I like to play soccer, and sometimes, there are some pitches in which people have already booked for, but they would release it for an amount of money. I remember we discussed this problem before, and you said that you would implement some measures. Do you have some kind of software to try to ensure this wouldn't happen? Well, last year, I think there was the same question. We did supply additional information. The LCSD has received a temporary funding to upgrade their systems, and it has already been approved. Now they are working on it, and it should be implemented in the second half of next year, according to our information. Now, this is an improvement project. So what is the outcome of this improvement? So when the facilities have been cancelled, then others will be able to rebook. But then under the new improvement project, it would be improved. Well, we're not talking about cancelled sessions. We're talking about when you book the facilities. Someone would use different ID numbers to book all the facilities. Well, according to the LCSD, the rebooking session will only be released at a designated time, so that it would be fairer, and it would be also a first come first served basis. Well, yes, I know there are no 4 channels. I want to know about internet booking. Many people tell me that if you start your booking at 6 o'clock, then by 6:05, the internet network would already be so congested, no one would be able to get in the website. You tell me that, this is not something that can be resolved. Well, then I believe you because, I'm not good with technology. But if you say that, yes, it could be curbed, then tell me how you can do it. I just want to know one question from your perspective, of applying for funding. What have you done? You might have identified some people who book facilities on a frequent basis. Well, I'm not saying that you have to penalize frequent hires. That if you book courts or book sessions or book facilities just to release them for money, then I don't think it's acceptable. Well, so how can you curb touting activities? Well, I don't think they understand the question. They're still giving me these 4 channels. No, we can supply you with additional information later on. I think we have already given you a response earlier. For specifics, no. I know how I should ask the question. Has the LCSD asked for a order for funding? Well, what order? Well, for operational issues, then we will have to provide you with information later on. For the systems, we have already targeted activities to curb touting by not allowing the same credit card to be used. Well, what order has the LCSD given to curb these activities? Well, the response in the first round said that they have already been approved for temporary funding to improve. Well, so what is the improvement order? That's what I want to know. Well, let me try to explain the procedures. We approve the funding for the LCSD to work on improvement, but we do not promote the operations. Operations would still be managed by LCSD. LCSD will need to curb these touting activities itself. It is not something undertaken by the ITB. So, okay, the answer is that they can apply for funding, but you would not ask for details. Is that right? Well, for operational details, we do not manage them. We only manage them in terms of technological details. I have a question I'd like to ask about the smart city. Well, can you tell us some of the content that is related to smart city? Well, maybe you can provide us with the information later on. Mr. Charles MOK, well, time is up, but perhaps I can allow you 2 minutes. No, thank you. Well, asked about the cloud platform right now. Many people carry the misconception that the private cloud would be safer than the public cloud, but that's not the case exactly.
So the administration has already told us it's policy, but I hope you can strike a balance, because if the government doesn't adopt doesn't support the use of public cloud, then it is not very good for the whole IT industry. And for email system, just October, Singapore announced 143,000 civil servants would use a Facebook workplace collaboration platform. I'd like to know whether we're still using Lotus Notes in our civil service. Have we kicked them all out? Because some secretaries told us they were only aware of how backward the government was when they joined the government, but they had no choice but to continue to use it. So will we use the latest developed and open system in the civil service? We'll keep an eye on what new technology is available for government departments to use. From time to time, we assess when these new technologies are suitable for government use, and after conducting our internal assessment, we will work out proposal to be adopted by all government departments. For instance, we noticed that big data is a new resource for government departments to make decisions. So we have, all right, there is no time. What about Lotus Notes? Is it still being used? Yes, it's being used by most departments. No matter how you beat around the bush, we will know. We can tell how backward Hong Kong is in the adoption of latest technology. The government must take the lead. I don't know whether it's because the government departments don't like to listen to you, but you must be more earnest in urging departments to use it. If not, you ask the secretary to do it for you. Yes, with the IT Bureau, we want government departments to be ahead of new developments. If most government departments are still using Lotus Notes, then we are really worried. I hope the secretary can urge the government departments to use more new and open platforms. All right. So from what I heard this afternoon, most of us are supportive of the proposal. Of course, I support the item, but I'll let you know whether this will go to the Finance Committee. Yes. Can you give me information on CPU's upgrade of government portal? $9.5 million spent on it. I'll let you know when was this done last time and also the money spent. So members has raised concerns over some of the projects. I hope you can give us detailed information when you go to LegCo so that the item can be approved ASAP. Thank you. We move on to the next item.
唔該。咁下一個議程呢，就第5項就推行
An update on the implementation of digital terrestrial television broadcasting. After the administration has introduced the paper to us, I will invite members to ask questions. Yes, Permanent Secretary, please, Ms. Ho, Ms. Susie Ho. Thank you, Chairman and members of the panel. In January 2015, reported members the progress of implementation of DTT in Hong Kong. We have already included the information and background in this paper, so I will just highlight the salient points. The DTT was launched in on the 31st of December 2007. Now, Hong Kong Television Entertainment Company Limited and Television Broadcast Limited are providing DTT services, and they cover at least 99% of the Hong Kong population. So when we receive any inquiry, we will provide technological advice to assist members of the public to receive DTT services. And Fantastic Television Limited was granted a free TV license on the 31st of May 2015. It is required to launch its licensed free TV service via a fixed network no later than the 30th of May 2017. And for RTHK, it started its DTT channels in January 2015. It now covers about 85% of the Hong Kong population. DTT is, RTHK is improving its network. With the completion of filling stations in 2019, the DTT target coverage of 99% of the Hong Kong population will be achieved, and such coverage will be on a par with the current DTT coverage of TVB and Hong Kong TVE. For program channels, they are using HD format, providing 9 different channels. For details, please refer to para 10. And for the penetration of DTT services, according to a survey, 2.1 million households, or 85% of the households in Hong Kong, can receive DTT services. In other words, above 400,000 members of the public are still watching analog TV services. When we end the analog policy, we said that the target date for terminating analog services will be 2020, and this will help to strengthen Hong Kong's position as a broadcasting hub. So we will keep an eye on the market development and also the provision of DTT service to the public. Thank you. There are 4 members. 5 minutes each, okay? Ms. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you. Many members of the public have reflected that DTT service do not offer them a variety of sports programs, and the local arts sector also ask for arts channel. So how can you encourage these organizations to broadcast more local sports programs? And 2 applicants are still applying to applying for a free TV license. Wingxing Asia and also Hong Kong TV. I'd like to know when the vetting process can be completed. For sports and arts programs, I recall that on different open public consultation occasions, for instance, when there is a review of a current TV license, similar requests are made, and the same has been made for pay TV as well. So when the BA issues new licenses or renew existing licenses, they will put such requirements into the licensing conditions. I think it is entirely market-led. And for arts programs, yes, we have heard similar requests from the public. RTHK is not able to provide 24-hour broadcasting yet, but when it does, or when it is in service, it has got quite a large segment of arts programs, so we encourage you to do more. And for licenses, there are 3 applications under application. In end September, we accept BA's recommendations to allow HKTV more time to provide information sought by the BA. And then for Wingxing, BA is processing its applications, has not made any recommendation to the Executive Council yet. And for Phoenix TV, a public consultation lasted for 6 weeks and it's just ended. I believe the BA is using existing procedures to consider application before making any recommendation to the EXCO. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. As at end last year, there were still 400,000 TV viewers receiving analog signals. Do you know why these households are not willing to switch to DTT. You hope that the whole thing can be resolved by 2020. Can you advance the date? Well, 400,000 households. Since 2007, the number of households has dropped from quite a high figure. Now we have 1.2 million households with access to DTT service. If I remember correctly, in 2009, there were still analog TV sets available in the market. I believe some viewers might have purchased analog TV sets. So it depends on when they're going to buy new TV sets, because only digital TV sets are available in the market. So it will be a natural replacement process when TV sets are due for replacement. According to past experience, when there is a major international event such as the Olympics and a World Cup, people are more inclined to replace their analog TV with a digital one. And in 2020, by 2020, in 2017-18, we're going to conduct a review. Each TV set and analog TV set has a lifespan of about 6 to 7 years, at most 10 years. So in 2010 we will see, or in 2017 we'll see, and we'll decide whether in 2020 we're going to effect the analog switch off, ASO. But then a lot of work is involved, and we'll see how it can be done. Mr. Charles MOK. For DTT service, I think we have two concerns. First, content and competition. Of course, with the launching of View TV, I believe most people will think that View TV is better than ATV and TVB. However, a lot still leaves to be desired, and for another TV company has applied a number of times to no avail, and we do not know the reasons for that. I think once we still have CY Leung around, we will have no choice when it comes to TV programs. Mr. Marvin Kwok asked how we can encourage TV viewers to use analog TV instead of to use digital TV service instead of analog service. I think the government is waiting for analog TV sets to end their lifespan. I think you have underestimated the lifespan. My old analog TV was only recently dumped because I don't have enough space at home, and that one lasted for more than 10 years. For grassroots viewers, of course, they can accommodate one more TV set. That's okay. But for grassroots, this is a major determining factor.
Some countries would provide subsidies for people to switch to digital TV and to provide more information, because there are many choices nowadays. I don't think you should just focus on this view. Would you consider that, by the year 2020, that there are still some people who are using analog TV? Would you consider helping them then? Perhaps you should start thinking about it now to really help the grassroots or those in need to switch to digital TV. It's not going to use too much money. If there are people who are still using analog TV, would you consider to help them switch financially before 2020? I think you are still looking into the timetable of the mainland before further development. Is there any update on that, or do we have to wait for more information? Are we waiting for the spectrum? Some friends tell me that the ITU request a certain amount of spectrum to be developed each year, and Hong Kong is very backward in this. Well, on one hand, you are asking people to switch to digital TV, and on the other hand, you're waiting for the mainland to open up their development. That would actually affect our vide development as well. Can you try to think of ways to resolve these issues before they become reality? For grassroots families, or those with financial need, we understand that they can also try to use a set-top box because as a set-top box has already dropped to below $500 from $2,000 before, so they don't necessarily have to buy a new TV. We would of course consider methods to help them later on. Therefore, as I said earlier, we do need a longer period of time for preparation to see whether there is such a huge demand. This is not only an issue with TV, because when we effect the analog switch off, in some of the single unit per story buildings, they would need to enhance the building antennas. So we would need to prepare this in advance and to have a more comprehensive plan. May I reply the second question? Yes. In terms of the spectrum usage agreement with the mainland, the mainland plans to switch off its analog TV by 2020. So we also need to discuss with them spectrum usage. So within the 700 to 800 megahertz, 100 megahertz could be used for telecommunications. Once the ITU decides to adopt this measure, then we would also move towards this direction. I'm sure that the mainland also needs the spectrum. We understand that they have their different needs as well, and we would continue our discussion with them. We hope that by 2020 we'll be able to effect analog switch off simultaneously. Mr. Ray Chen, thank you, Madam Chair. Our discussion today is on the update on the implementation of DTT broadcasting, but from the paper I do not see anything new. I'm sure that the public is most interested in the three organizations that have applied or are applying for the free TV license, especially HKTV. We don't even want to ask the question anymore because we don't get any answers. HKTV has almost completed its TV building, but the government still has not given us any update on this. The permanent secretary today only keeps on telling us that HKTV needs to submit more documents. But Mr. Wong Wai Kei has already said that the government is trying to delay this because of the CE election, and that he has already submitted all his information and supplementary information. There's not much he can do. Well, even if you decide to grant him the license, the CE election would have been completed by then. That's not the major thing here. So when are you going to allow him to the go ahead? If you read the Mr. Fong's article on Headline News today, you would see that any news that is detrimental to CE election, then it should be banned from being spoken of. Well, we understand that you keep on asking Mr. Wong to submit for additional information. Oh, he said he's already provided all information. Do you have a timeline to tell us, when he would be given the green light? I don't think issuing a free TV license to Hong Kong HKTV would have an impact on CE election. Well, if you're waiting for it to be safe before you can issue a license, then you can only issue it to Phoenix TV. Well, even if the TV station broadcasts ABC, so what? I don't think there would be any ABC after the elections have taken place. In issuing free TV license, our usual procedure is to adopt our usual way in issuing the license. On September 17th, HK we have already given the suggestion that HKTV should be allowed more time to submit further information, and the Executive Council has already sent out a letter requesting HKTV to do it. So does the Communications Authority has the CA expressed their views on that? Well, on the September 27th decision, we have agreed, and EXCO also agrees with the CA's suggestion. So we request HKTV to provide the information we requested, and we've already notified HKTV of the contents that we are asking them to submit. Well, that's all I can say for now. This is an interactive procedure. EXCO agrees with the CA's proposal this time. Or do you have a reasonable estimate on when a decision could be made? As I said, this is an interactive procedure. When there is enough information, I don't think that any authority would be trying to delay the procedure. We would just go with our usual legal procedure until it is completed. We're not going to delay it deliberately. Mr. He Chi-fong, thank you. The paper highlights the DTT coverage in Hong Kong, and that DTT services has achieved an overall coverage of at least 91% of the Hong Kong population. What do you mean by coverage? Is it clear coverage? Because in my own district, in the northern side of Hong Kong, people have lodged complaints on the somehow so-called coverage, because sometimes they can see it, sometimes they are not. Sometimes they cannot. I'm sure you have heard about the complaints. I'm talking about a population impacted by this of about thousands and thousands. I think you should go visit to check out the signal. But then, even though you have already been to the some of the fill-in stations, the situation has not been improved. So I want to know, are you going to continue to accept the coverage percentage and not put any emphasis on the quality? Well, I know we understand that if you request 100% coverage, even for telecommunications, it's almost impossible. You said that the signal is weak in certain areas. Well, when we designed it, we wanted it to enjoy coverage as well. But due to geographical barriers, or the heights of the buildings, sometimes the signal would not be as strong. When we receive such complaints, we would send out colleagues to the area. We would test it and then provide technical suggestions. Let me share with you my experience. After we receive complaints and after we go conduct on-site inspection, we would see that sometimes the antennas have been blown astray after a typhoon. So these are some of the technical issues. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. Well, yes, these are measures that you have been adopting all the time, but I'm telling you right now that the measures are not effective. Well, you said that you have enhanced the Gamsan station. How can you ensure that you can improve your signal? Would you be trying to upgrade your hardware or to build more stations? Mr. Lee? Well, the coverage right now is 99%. It's already quite an ideal number compared to other cities. And it is already difficult to try to attain this percentage. It's almost impossible to ensure satisfactory coverage in all areas. Experience shows that sometimes if we add in an amplifier or try to take more technical measures, then the signal would become stronger. It's very difficult to try to achieve 100% coverage because the last few percent would be very difficult. In terms of individual cases, we do try to amplify or improve the signal to satisfy the public's needs. Or if there are no other questions, I would like to follow up with a coverage question. We always receive complaints from people living in the rural areas that they are not able to get a signal. And Mr. Hui has already asked this question. In your paper, you said that there is a coverage of 99% in Hong Kong. Well, have you estimated for the remaining 1%? How many people are we talking about? How many households are included in that 1%? Have you analyzed that 1%, and can you try to gradually think of ways to improve the situation technically?
For instance, we may have a remote area with a higher population relatively. So can you say gradually cover this? Is your policy to leave that 1% entirely, or can you gradually increase the coverage to 99.5%? PS. Yes, if I may have a go first, and Mr. Lee can supplement later. Well, as far as I understand it, some places cannot receive signals as well. For instance, in Lau Fau Shan, Niwa Maham, and also some remote areas in Sai Kung and south of Lantau, they are within that 1%. Were not covered by the current services. As Mr. Lee said, it is. We may have to accept that it is not easy to achieve 100% coverage because of the topography of Hong Kong. In some cases, the population is very low, and on some occasions, it's because there aren't suitable places for providing the necessary facilities. And I've also seen where villages chip in to have their own amplifiers to enhance the acceptance. So we will try to do our best. Basically, it is for TV stations to provide the network, and they may compromise at times. Mr. Lee may supplement. Before Mr. Lee does, may I supplement? Since some villages have their own amplifiers to improve reception, that means technically speaking, it is not infeasible. So before Mr. Lee answers, can the PS promise to give us a paper on the distribution, geographically speaking, of the remaining 1% that has no exact reception, and also the number of residents involved? And do you have a regular discussion with service providers to assist these places to receive the signal? Now, if you say that it's technically not feasible, but it will be very costly, we would like to know how much money is needed. And LegCo can then assess whether we should do it for the sake of these residents, difficult though it is. If you are saying that it is not possible to have 100% coverage because the population is too low and the hurdles are too high, then even if you come back next time, we will still have this problem. We want to help residents living in remote areas to be able to receive the signals so that they can be like their counterparts living in other parts of Hong Kong and have access to TV services. Mr. Lee? Most of the places not covered are in remote places, not just places with sparse population, but also very remote, geographically speaking. It's not easy to find locations to provide the filling stations, and there may also be interference or to farmland or agricultural land. We'll try to increase this percentage where technology allows, but as I said, we'll discuss with TV stations as far as possible so as to mitigate the situation where some members of the public cannot have TV services at all. All right, so please give us the paper later. All right, if there are no further questions, we end this item. Item 5 AOB. The next meeting is scheduled for the 12th of December 2016 at 2:30. If there are no further questions, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.